Are we good? Awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Rayna Rose Axelbeard. I graduated from FAU in 2015, and I'm so excited to be here to share a little bit about my personal journey, and some of the experiences that I've had when it comes to breaking stereotypes. When Danielle was just introducing me, I'll never forget, we went into a high school once when Danielle was 17, and for those of you who don't know this, Danielle does a lot of Holocaust-inspired art, and if you look at her art, you'll see that she is painted in a lot of her pictures telling her story. And I'll never forget, this student raises his hand and he says, "Why do you only draw yourself?" And I'll never forget, Danielle very confidently looked at this guy and he goes, "Because nobody else can tell my story better than me." So I want to start out just by saying that every single person in this room was named their name for a reason. Each and every single one of you were given skills and gifts, and nobody will ever do a job the way that you do it, and no one will ever tell your story better than you. Yeah. So, growing up, it's interesting how much we can take on different parts of our culture as identity, right? So growing up in the Jewish community, as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, very involved with my synagogue, super involved with my youth group, I was never really put in a position to question my identity. Has anyone ever been in a situation where you had to kind of question your identity? Yeah? Anybody want to share a little nugget? Okay, that's all right. Anybody want to share? All right. So for me, growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, as a Jewish person, if you can believe this, I never experienced anti-Semitism or racism a day in my life. When I was 18, I moved to Israel for a year, and there I was doing archaeological digging, I was volunteering in the Israeli army, I was coaching Jewish and Muslim children in soccer. Growing up Jewish, living in Jerusalem, learning about Christianity and Islam, I'm here to tell you, once you start walking around Israel, you realize it ain't about her story, it ain't about his story, it's all our story, right? So even though we as individuals have our own story, there are also chapters where together it becomes our story. And I was 18, I was living in Israel, I was having the best year of my life, and this was the first time in my entire life I was ever exposed to this idea. When you get to college, you might meet some people who don't like Jews. You might experience anti-Semitism. Now, let's take a step back, my awesome shoes, right? I knew at the time that there were more Jewish people in the city of Boca Raton than the entire state of Tennessee. So as someone who never experienced racism and I never experienced anti-Semitism, when they said, "Hey, you might experience this in college," I had a stereotype of Boca Raton, right? In my mind, when I thought of Boca Raton, I thought of Jewish people, I thought of, a lot of retired people. So you can understand by that stereotype alone, I never in a million years thought I would face that kind of stuff, right? And to be totally honest, my plan when I got to FAU was I'm going to study business, I'm going to make a lot of money, and then I'm going into politics. Woo! Where's Marianne? Yeah. And I'll never forget the first week of school. I'm walking to class and I see the Hillel table. Shout out to my Hillel family here. And I see this super cute guy talking to the Hillel staff, so y'all know I walk faster, And I get up to the table and all of a sudden the really cute guy is saying some of the craziest stuff I've ever heard in my life. And I remember thinking to myself, about Jews and about Israel, and I remember thinking to myself, I know that this stuff happens, but this doesn't happen in high school, right? And the first thing that this guy said to my face was that Israeli soldiers drink blood. I said, Does this look like someone who would drink blood? And then he told me how Jews stole the land, and this was when having a BlackBerry was very cool. It also was very slow, and I was trying to show him, like, hey dude, I know that there's conflict in this region, but I volunteered at an archaeological dig site. I know that Jewish people have had a connection here for over 5,000 years. And it was in that conversation that at the end, I was so mad I didn't change his mind, which we're going to touch back on that at the end. But in sharing your story and in being an advocate for any cause, your goal should never be to change somebody else's mind. As a speaker, I got to know the audience. When you're in a conversation with somebody, it's the same thing. It's not, I want you to believe what I believe. It's, let me get to know you and understand your values, and I can relate my cause, or I can relate what I care about to you as an individual. Because again, you have a story. And when people are invested in you, they care about what you have to say, right? So the guy walks away. I'm so upset, and the equivalent of Sharon at the time, the Israel fellow, she taps on my shoulder. She says, hello, we need a new Israel fellow, we need a new advocacy intern, and you're hired. It's the first week of school. Then I sit down with the Hillel director, and he's like, you know, Rayna, it's so great that you lived in Israel, and it's amazing that you have Israeli friends, but if you're going to be the Israel advocacy intern, you kind of need to know some stuff about Israel. Because let's be real, guys. I lived there for a year. I didn't know where it was on the map. I knew that my grandparents survived the Holocaust, but that's all I knew. I didn't actually know their story and what that journey looked like. And sometimes in life, it is our biggest challenges, ultimately, that are going to inspire our biggest blessings. You know, when I was a student, I was very successful. I was involved in a lot of different organizations, but I was also cyberbullied. I also dealt with anti-Semitism, like all of my first 2 years on campus. And I say that because if I never had hate stuck on my door, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you as an alumni almost 10 years later, having spoken to over 250,000 people, sharing my story and most importantly, inspiring other people to not only learn their story, but listen to their peer share their story. You're gonna meet people throughout your life who think things differently than you. But to understand each other does not mean that we have to agree. What does that mean? To understand each other does not mean we have to agree.
To respect one another even if you have opposing views on things.
Exactly. The mind is like a parachute. It works best if it's completely open, right? And I'll tell you something like really big for me. So, when I graduated college, because I got involved with all these nonprofits, my junior year, I failed to share this, my junior year, I fundraised $30,000. I organized a 3-day Israel convention at FAU for over 150 college students from all over campus. And I'm really proud to say that the only reason we were able to run that conference is because some freshmen had just gotten back from Birthright. They just gotten back from their trip from Israel. And even though they didn't know a lot about Israel, they were excited about leadership and they were excited about the opportunity. So I share that too to tell you that I'm an expert now where I get paid to speak on all these different topics, but when I was your age, I didn't know where Israel was on the map. So I'm not saying you gotta go learn Israel's history, but I'm saying don't you dare ever tell yourself that you can't even start because you don't know. If you don't ever start, then you're never gonna know, right? And so when I graduated college, I still got the business degree, but what's gonna make you rich in your life is making connections. It's gonna be having different kinds of experiences like this, and most importantly, traveling. You travel on somebody else's dime, you're gonna be real rich. But when you travel, you learn so much about yourself, and about, and about the world. And you guys are so blessed that you go to a university that's so rich in programs and diverse students. You don't want to have people who think the same as you, you know? If all my friends thought the same that I did, trust me, I would not look this cool tonight. I did not dress myself, right? So when I graduated, all these nonprofits that I connected with in college were like, hey, we want you to work for us. So while you're in college, you gotta recognize being a student is like, I've got a golden ticket, right? You guys have seen Willy Wonka? As a student, if you care about something or you want to learn more about a particular thing, you start networking and you say, hey, I want to get coffee. Hey, can I come to your office? Hey, can we get lunch? People are so responsive to that. And the truth is, when people start applying for jobs when they graduate college, when do they really start applying for jobs? The spring of senior year, right? Sometimes even like once they've graduated. I'm here to tell you, if you want a badass job, if you want a job where you wake up every single day doing what you love, you better start building those connections right now. And not only is FAU rich in those connections, Boca Raton in Palm Beach County is full of connections, nonprofits, all sorts of things that could align with so many different values, right? And so, when I graduated college, I went to go work in the Israel education world. I worked as a motivational speaker and a mentor, training students how to give speeches, how to combat anti-Semitism, how to organize programs. And something big that I learned going from nonprofit world to running my own business, especially working with teens, I used to think if somebody said something anti-Semitic or if somebody said something that went against my values, what do you think I said we need to do? We need to cancel. Show of hands, who's heard this word? Right? We need to cancel this person, right? Because I used to be of the belief that, oh my God, this person is racist, they don't like Jews, everybody needs to know what they said. Now show of hands, who's ever said something before and then you regretted it later? Right? And with teenagers, what I realized once I got out of the Jewish community, a lot of times when people are saying something, it comes from their perspective, right? So what are some of the things that shape our perspective? Could be something they heard at home. Could have been something they saw on their news feed. Have you guys ever seen a post about something that you really care about, but it was wrong, right? So what I realized is most young people have never met a Holocaust survivor, right? A lot of the students who I've worked with in public schools, a lot of them don't have Jewish friends. So instead of immediately saying we need to cancel them, you gotta have the context next to the content, right? Because a lot of times, most people don't wanna be bullies. Most times, people don't wanna be hateful. We know that there are some of those people that exist, right? I have a job because of some of those people from college. But the truth is, most people are good. So my whole philosophy is, we need to have a conversation. I need to understand where you're coming from, right? We all just said, I don't have to agree to understand, but I need to actually ask questions to figure out why you believe that. And again, my goal isn't to change your mind, it's to give you information that's gonna supplement where you're coming from, right? So the content is saying something hateful, right? But the context is, this is somebody in middle school, this is someone in high school who now they understand that what they said was bad, but at the time that they said it, right? So I say that a lot because in our own families, right, with everything going on in the world right now, it can be like so difficult sometimes to agree on things or, you know, even have a conversation about a particular topic. And another big piece of advice I could give you is, sometimes you need to be the one who listens first. I'm the youngest in my family. I always got something to say. I love to talk. But from a psychological standpoint, if you listen and you ask questions to somebody else, what respect are they going to give you back? Right? And the other point I want to make is when we cancel these people, like the situation with Whoopi Goldberg, when we're talking about the content and the context, right? Palm trees can't grow in New York. The palm tree is the content. New York is the context. Now, what Whoopi said was really bad, but the context of where she was coming from, she had good intentions. Now, my opinion isn't like a popular perspective, but let's think about this. She's been bullied on the internet. Everything she's ever said for the last 40 years has been brought up and posted about and overanalyzed. Some of the people who've adored her movies for years are now all of a sudden so quick to say she denies the Holocaust, she said this is what she did was wrong. Well, let me ask you, if you got bullied online, which I experienced when I was here, if you got bullied online by an entire community and you didn't hate that community before, what do you think is going to be the reaction after everybody talks shit about you on the internet? You think she's going to want to have a conversation with the Jewish community now? Or is she obligated to have a conversation? It kind of reminds me, a friend of mine, she called me and she said, I told you I was so upset and you never called me back and da-da-da-da-da-da. And she made it into an obligation. I don't want to be obligated to be a good friend. I just want to be a good friend. I don't want to be obligated to have uncomfortable conversation. I want to know that you're actually just going to sit down with me and explain it. Even on the ride here, my assistant was like, okay, I know this might be a silly question, but what is this about? Or the other night when we were at dinner, what's kosher about? When we were talking about breaking stereotypes, I really wanted to prepare for this speech. And I told you, I have friends from all different backgrounds. So I wanted to pull in, a couple of those stories to reinforce some of these points that you may not have had an experience, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't exist. That other people in the world haven't faced those challenges, right? So, a couple of years ago, when the whole thing with pronouns came out, at the beginning I was like, I don't really think this is a big deal. If you want to use pronouns, and if you don't, then, whatever. I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. Now I want you guys to imagine, I'm in my old middle school classroom, it's a 7th grade classroom, and I'm talking, I'm doing my thing, and one of the students answered my question, and I said, "You go, girl." And the entire class, all 30 students, 7th graders, pointed at me, and they immediately screamed, "He's a boy." I felt terrible in that moment. But because of that moment, I don't use personal pronouns in my speeches anymore because I need to be inclusive of everyone. But that perspective didn't mean anything to me until that moment I was the one being hurtful, but not knowing it, right? So you're gonna make mistakes, but if you can learn from them and most importantly, be open about it, people are gonna respect you a lot more. My girlfriend, she just got engaged. Her fiance is this really big criminal defense attorney in Memphis. Really, really famous. He's in a wheelchair. And sometimes when they travel, like when they go to Las Vegas, he could buy any ticket he wants at the concert. But whatever, they get tickets and they come in and they seal the wheelchair, and how do you think the people working there think of him because he's in a chair? They feel bad. They literally, I'm not making this up, you guys, I'm telling you, they go to concerts and it's like they always get put in the front row. They look at him almost like a make-a-wish, oh, we feel bad for you, we need to do something nice. Little do they know that this guy is like making millions of dollars, and like that's nice that you put him in the front, but you just base that off of what you looked at, right? So you see what I'm saying with like these different experiences? Or the same girlfriend, she said this weekend, I'm from Memphis, and she said, yeah, me and Ken, we went to Graceland this weekend. And you know, we got in the van and we're about to get out of the van, and the woman on the speaker says, okay, we're gonna go walk to the front door. We're gonna roll to the front door. I'm not making this up. She said, like, literally, this is what happened. And, you know, I said to Sarah, like, you know, how does Ken react in those situations? She goes, you know, Rayna, it's okay for other people to be uncomfortable because Ken is comfortable, right? It might be uncomfortable to say, Rayna, what is kosher? But I'm comfortable in explaining what that is. But I'll also point out, I got a question for you, because as a Jew in Tennessee, I can't tell you how many times where anything related to the Jewish people, all of a sudden it'd be like, Rayna, the spokeswoman for all the Jews. What do you think? Have you guys ever been in a situation where you're in a class and now all of a sudden you're like the spokesperson for the LGBTQ community? You're the spokesman for the state of Israel, right? I always tell people Judaism is like one big clothing store. We all go shopping in the same store, we all come out with our own outfit. You know? Just because we might share a heritage does not automatically mean that like we are the same. I am a modern Orthodox Jew who eats bacon, and I'm from Tennessee. People are like, huh? But that doesn't make me any less Jewish. That doesn't make me any more Jewish. And the last thing that I want to end on with you guys when it comes to identity, all these different groups that you belong to, they're a part of you, but it's not who you are, right? And in the professional sense, I'll share it as when I left the nonprofit world and I went to go start my business, The Rose Grows, I defined myself as a mentor. I defined myself as a speaker. But when you start a new business, things take a little bit of time, right? So for the first 6 months when I wasn't speaking and I wasn't mentoring, and that's how I defined myself, how did you think I felt about myself? Like shit. Like, who am I? You know what? It wasn't even just that. It was literally, I went from being on a plane 3 times a week, posting all the things on my story, to me and my cat sitting on the couch with the phone not ringing and me being like, what did you do? What did you do? We call this imposter syndrome. I'm like, who do you think you are? That you could leave a job where you were so successful? Oh, okay, Rayna Rose, you're just gonna go start another business and you think you're gonna be successful at it? Who do you think you are? And it wasn't until I went through the personal development journey, because sometimes if you're working so hard on the outside, you're missing out on things on the inside, right? For me, grieving my dad was a big one that kind of inspired me to write this children's book. So, to everyone. But what I realized in that 6 months is, you know, who I am is I'm a connector, I'm funny, I'm inspirational, I'm kind, and as an entrepreneurial, you got a lot of different jobs. So it doesn't matter if I'm being interviewed on a podcast about business, or if you know, I'm in the kitchen catering. I'm showing up funny, inspirational, kind, and a connector because that's who I am. And when it comes to breaking stereotypes, my challenge for you is to not only figure out who you are, but figure out who the hell you're sitting next to. How we opened is how I'll close. Why were you named your name? That's my favorite question to ask someone. Number one, it's a way to get really deep, really fast, without it being weird. Also, if they're like, I don't know like why I got my name. It's an amazing question to be like, cool, give me your email, like, let's follow up, right? But in order to really break stereotypes, you have to get to know the individual person. Last story I'll share. Yesterday I was getting my nails done. I got a little FAU nail here. I was so excited to be here. And a friend of mine goes, yeah, we got to stop by this Indian restaurant. I want to get a gift card for my Indian friend this weekend. He's going to be having a birthday party. I looked at him, I said, don't you think that's like kind of racist? He looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, you don't think it's kind of racist that like he's Indian, you're buying a gift card to an Indian restaurant? And he kind of like looked at me, and then I looked at my nail guys from Vietnam. I said, Tony, which Fifth Avenue Nails. I said, Tony, if somebody gave you a gift card to a Vietnamese restaurant, what would your reaction be? He's like, Rayna, I'd be so happy. He goes, because they really thought about where I'm from, and then they go to the restaurants and they speak in the language. Like, it's so easy just to give a gift card to anywhere, but giving it to something from my culture means that that person actually cared, right? And then once I heard that perspective, my "this is racist" hat, I threw that one away because I was like, that perspective actually wasn't true. It may have been true in other situations, because maybe that's why I had it, right? But every day is an opportunity for you to meet new people, learn things about the world, and most importantly, make positive changes within yourself. The mission of The Rose Grows is when one grows, we all grow. And that's not just in times of opportunity. That's also in times of challenges. It wasn't just 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Holocaust. It was black people, it was gay people, it was gypsy people. It's up to all of us to stand up for each other, and if we don't start having those conversations now, then when? The Holocaust started with words. It started with words. And you know what? At the time, most people didn't even believe in a lot of those words. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't speak up. And when we see a lot of issues going on right now in the world, on the left and on the right, all those people who are really loud on both sides, the majority of the people are silent. Don't be in that silent majority. Don't say, I'm going to be silent because I don't know, or I don't want to touch about it, or it's not my place, or I feel dumb asking. Right? So with that, I want to thank you all. It's been super, super exciting to share my story with you. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm super active on all platforms, the Rose Grows. And if there's anything that I can do to connect you to somebody, or help you chase your dreams, or help you manifest the life of your dreams, I want to be that person. I want to be that connector. I want to be that cheerleader. And I just want you to know, even flowers need shit to grow. So if you're having a bad semester, been there, right? You had a bad day, been there. But at 29 years old, if you would have told Rayna Exelbeard at 18 years old, hey, you're going to go to college, you're going to experience anti-Semitism, you're going to speak to over 250,000 people, you're going to travel the world, you're going to be able to live on your own as a woman. One of those bedrooms, by the way, has over 100 pairs of sneakers that I bought doing a job that I love. And again, had I not been bullied, had I not been stereotyped, I would not be standing here in front of you today. So conversation over cancel, and just recognize that sometimes, rejection is just redirection. The challenge is just pushing you to do something different. Had I not experienced anti-Semitism, then yeah, I probably would have gone into the business world or gone into the marketing world. And would I have done really well? For sure. But I wouldn't wake up every single day feeling empowered and passionate about what I do. And one other thing, when I was in college, I was so insecure. I didn't have a lot of followers on Instagram. Especially when the guy I was dating broke up with me to marry this one chick with 500,000 followers, right? I didn't feel good about myself, even though I was getting the opportunity to travel and speak, and like I told you, the conference, all these cool things. I didn't feel good about myself because there were no zeros in my waist size and there were no zeros in my follower count. What I can tell you now, that I know now, there is nothing more fulfilling, special, or important to me than when I get a note from a teen or I get a DM from someone who heard me speak and said, "You changed my life today. What you said really stuck out to me." That's what I care about. My follower count is relatively the same. Be an influencer in the real world. You ain't measured by how many people follow you online, and you certainly aren't measured by random strangers around the world telling you how good you look in your photos, because that's what I was jealous of, right? So it's not about, you know, another thing about like stereotypes, it's not always about what you see, it's about the impact. And with that, we are going to get to the next part of the program.
How was that? Woo! Now I'm gonna do a little activity with y'all. So everyone in this room, we're gonna just go in order of the row to tell me one thing they wrote on their brick. One thing, it doesn't have to be the deepest thing, but if you want to hit it to that point, please do. And just if you want to give like a brief introduction of who you are, why you wrote that word, if you can, but just literally just a simple, what is it that you're saying? And yeah, so Rayna, if you would like to start. On your brick.
What's the word that I wrote? Oh, that not all Jews are white. So Jewish people come from all over the world. In America, I've experienced discrimination as a woman. You heard in my story that I've experienced discrimination as a Jew. But in this country, I've never experienced discrimination being white. But most Jews, we don't identify as white. You have Jews from Africa, you have Jews from all over Europe. Actually, what's interesting with my job, sometimes I get asked to go into corporations to speak for diversity, D&I initiatives. And so many times, Jewish people are not included in DE&I because they see us as white and not as a minority. So that's also a really, really big stereotype that I'm committed to breaking down.
Thank you. Yeah, what you wrote on your brick?
I wrote that, what is
One
that
thing.
right? Oh yeah, the Jews are all rich. All Jewish people are rich people.
Right, you see one thing.
One of the things I wrote was Karen.
All right, one thing.
That Jews don't believe in God.
One thing.
I wrote that Jews are monsters.
One thing.
Pretty easier.
One thing.
Overconfident.
One thing.
Look too old for my age.
One thing.
That I wouldn't have to work hard to get anywhere because like Jews control everything.
One thing.
I wrote that I was anxious and I couldn't public speak.
One thing.
All Jews are shifty and greedy.
One thing.
I can't speak Cuban because I'm not loud enough.
One thing. One thing.
Different opinions don't matter.
One thing.
Just kind of following the Jewish trends, like people, just that people say that people from Jews from Boca are always like rich.
Okay. One thing.
Okay, that all black people are loud and aggressive.
One thing.
All women are emotional.
One thing.
Lazy.
One thing.
Unstable.
One thing.
Women are emotional.
One thing.
That I'm a killer because I'm Israeli.
One thing.
Hardworking Mexican.
One thing.
Me? The Indians don't ride dolphins to school.
True? One thing, Michaela.
She said what I was thinking, but something I could tell is I talk white.
Okay. One thing.
My mom is Mexican, so her tacos must be really good.
One thing.
Southern white people are the country.
One thing.
Oreo.
One thing.
Invisible.
One thing.
Oh, my
Oh, just say one thing. What stereotype? That's my brother, by the way.
stereotype. I don't think I've encountered too many.
Just one thing.
I don't know.
Okay. Next person. One thing.
Oh, mild dyslexia, you can't read.
Okay. One thing.
I'm deaf blonde.
One thing.
I'm Dixie because I'm Brazilian.
One thing.
Women should be seen and not heard.
And finally, one thing.
Asians can't drive.
Okay, so the reason why I did that, I don't know if y'all noticed, but I was folding a piece of paper. So now we're gonna go like in backwards in the backward order, and you're gonna tell me like what you're gonna say to combat that stereotype. So it doesn't have to be actually confronting it, but it could be just something positive that you reassure yourself that when you hear those things, this is kind of like your confirmation that what is being said is not true. So Ivan, please start.
I have a driver's license.
Regina, please start.
Women's opinions do matter.
Okay,
I have my standards.
okay.
I can most definitely read. It takes me a little slower sometimes, but we got it.
I may be blunt, but I helped an organization like raise $27,000 in 3 days for a philanthropy that I love.
Yeah.
Me again. Baptized in the violence.
I am hardworking.
What?
I am hardworking.
I love humans and let's have coffee.
Just because I speak educated doesn't mean I talk white. My mom makes better cucumber.
I like all different kinds of music.
I'm not white because I like things that aren't considered black.
I am wanted and I can speak.
I'm passionate.
So I'm not emotional and passionate. I just do things on my own time.
I want to see being stable living my life. Just being like a strong female leader.
I'm my own person, making my own path in the world.
I've won a lot of public speaking awards.
Not all Jews are green.
My personality traits doesn't make me any less cute.
The people in attendance here.
Just don't judge a book by its cover.
You can believe whatever you want. I'm not spoiled. My family works hard to help me out.
I'm passionate about many different things.
I'm more than just my age.
Not all Jews look like me.
Hey, I'm a college student and I work 4 jobs.
I'm an active anti-racist.
Awesome, so thank you so much everyone for participating. So as we saw this piece of paper, this paper was obviously crisp and nice and flat. It's not anymore. That's what happens when you say things or you don't think before you speak or you judge a book by its cover or any other way that phrase can be said. You are hurting someone. And even though that person could go after, leave this room and say, oh, these stereotypes didn't bother me, it's fine, I can move on, it still impacts what they are. When you say stereotypes, you're putting them in a box that limits that person into what and when they're able to do something. And so the reason why I did this exercise, actually this event was 3 years in the making. I was president of Somos FAU as a freshman, and I was told that when I became that position that it was obvious because I looked the part. And at first I was like, I don't know what that means, what is looking the part meant. If I had another Colombian who's redhead and blue eyes, does that not make them look the part solely because of brown hair, brown eyes? Not only that, but always since I was little, I've always experienced certain things that kind of have phased me and it kind of like made me the person I am today. So I'm going to tell 3 kind of stories that happened, different points in my life that kind of geared as to why this presentation occurred and why when I came into FAU I knew I wanted to get this done some way or somehow. So actually a most recent one, over the summer, I want to be President of the United States one day. Well, I'm going to be President of the United States one day. This is something that I've been saying since I was 5 years old. However, I knew that I needed to start somewhere. Most people join the Peace Corps, they do some sort of internship. So I applied to an internship called the People of Colors Internship. I saw that, I looked online, thought it was a great idea, let me apply. In that submission application, you must submit your photo. So okay, I had a nice cute little picture, my blazer, felt all confident, sent it in, I got the email that they want to schedule an interview with me, we got that scheduled. I go when it's virtual, obviously because of COVID, and obviously it's in DC. So, I'm ready, I'm excited, did my makeup, hair, super excited for this interview. And the first thing that the woman said to me was, I did not expect someone looking like you to apply for this. And in that moment I was like, I did not understand, like I said, what do you mean a person looking like me? Well, you saw the images. I was like, yes. Those images were of students, primarily African American or Black students, but they were other students from other cultures in there. So I was like, I saw the pictures. I still don't understand what you're referencing to. She's like, well, we said people of color and your skin tone's a little light for what that means of colored. And in that moment, I remember saying, I could either flip off at this woman or give a piece of education. Now, if y'all know me, I have no problem confronting anyone. However, in this moment, I knew that since this is a reputation that I'm going to have, and at the end of the day, it is someone older, this is a job that I'm applying to, if I were to yell at her, she's going to leave and be like, this wacko, why would you want her anyways? And I basically gave her a reason to prove that what she said was correct. So I rethought it, I took a breath, and I said, people of color is not just literally a little skin shop. I don't know if y'all seen that SpongeBob episode where Larry the Lobster and some other like fish, they're a bunch of tan ones, and SpongeBob and Patrick want to go into this nightclub that they're having. And basically the guy, the bouncer in the show, who's actually I think a crab, pulls up and goes, looking at the skin color, and it shows SpongeBob and Patrick's skin color as do not let in, and then a bunch of darker skin tones as yes, allowed. And so I explained that to her, and I was like, you knew when you applied, I applied for this internship that I was Latina. And it did not say in the application, do not let Latinos in. Or there wasn't a skin color reference that was needed for me to be able to participate in this internship. So anyways, I educated her. I left there thinking, I'm not getting this. I still ended up getting the internship. I think that me educating was it, but obviously I did not take it because why? If that's gonna be the experience of the interview, why would I want to go live with these people essentially? Because basically what it is they would pay for everything. And I remember in that moment, I left there feeling so disconfident of all the hard work and all my merit that I have applied for this internship. And this being the way it kind of ended out. And that was one thing that really was eye-opening, as people don't know what people of color means. They don't know what that means. They don't want to learn about it just solely because they don't want to. And I think that a lot of people think that racism is solely with white Americans. And that's not. We all experience. We all enter a room and sometimes you'll see someone and you'll experience something. You just came up with a judgment. Oh, well, their eyebrows are too close together. Or, oh, whatever it is. You see those things and you automatically make an assumption of who this person is. Another experience was I was in 8th grade, and I remember I was leaving my house with my dad, and we have neighbors around, and we live in a fairly nice neighborhood, and I remember primarily that neighborhood was mostly people, just normal, basic people. So I'm coming out, my dad and I are laughing in the morning, he's driving me to school, and I remember the woman or my neighbor going, hello? And she's on the phone talking about whatever. And mind you, my dad and I are still talking, and this lady goes, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, the monkeys were talking. And I remember in that moment, being called a monkey in front of my house at like 6 in the morning, on my way to school. First of all, I never heard that term ever. That wasn't something that I was familiar with. I didn't know that that was like a stereotype. And I also thought she meant monkey as like my laugh, because my laugh is pretty funny. But when doing the research and what that meant, I remember in that position, like, what is going on? This is our neighbor. If her house were to ever burn on fire and I'm there, I am essentially responsible to call 911 and make sure that her whole family is alive. But the fact that these people, sometimes we say things, but we don't know the impact that it went. And I remember that day I had a horrible day at school, because I could not believe that this occurred. And then another story that happened to me is actually same year, a couple months down the line. I don't know, but me personally, when I see cigarettes, I cough. It's just instinct, because I'm just not a big cigarette smoker, and I think cigarettes are bad, but that's not this conversation. But I remember I was leaving a Starbucks, and a woman had a cigarette. This thing was big. I've never seen anything like that. I'm 13 years old, and I'm like, what is that? But I'm gonna cough, as I do always, and people just kind of like give me a dirty look, but it was fine. And I remember coughing again, and the woman turns around and goes, it's not even lit, you beaner bitch. 13 years old, leaving Starbucks with my friends. Now, I thought she was calling me a beaner because I had just left Starbucks. I honestly thought she was like, oh, Starbucks, coffee beans, there's some sort of relationship. But I remember leaving there, and then all my friends who also happened to be Latino were like, no, that's not what that means. Beaner is a term that basically Latinos, obviously Colombians specifically, they pick coffee beans. That's what we're kind of known for. But it's basically a term that you're low in society. because we don't really appreciate our farmers and, you know, people that actually do that type of agriculture. And I remember finding that out, and first of all, I think that reaction was a little bit overdue for what exactly we were talking about. But second of all, there's the fact that race had nothing to do with this conversation. It had to do about cigarettes. She could have totally been like, it's not even lit, and move on, like, walk away. To purposely call out what she thought of me and address it just to solely pin like a one-up. You just called me out for smoking, solely for coughing. I could have been coughing for something else. But not only that, she had to basically win that argument. That wasn't even had. So why I wanted to tell you these 3 situations was that I want you to think that when you're having interviews, when you're going to places and you want to do motions or just be yourself, think prior to speaking what you're doing, because this is what's going to be left. You can go and apologize a couple days later and say, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to call you that. But at the end of the day, this is going to be stuck in your mind for months on end, even when you're not thinking about it. And when you're in another situation, in a conversation, that story is going to mark you, but it's not a positive way of outlooking things. And so why I wanted to do this presentation was that I want us to confront it, which soon we will go into the other room, and those bricks obviously serve a purpose. But I want everyone to leave here knowing that, like what Rayna said, you are respected. What everyone else wants to assume solely on your physical or what they want to get from your identities, if anything, they're not a negative, they're a positive. So I just want to say thank you all for coming, and now we're going to get up, we're going to move over to the next room, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Do I look straight into the camera?
Yeah.
Okay,
You're good. You're good.
All right. Should I introduce myself?
You're good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rayna Rose. I currently serve as the program coordinator for multicultural programming here at Florida Atlantic University. And Rayna gave the most heartwarming, inspiring speech ever. It definitely resonated with me, and it definitely inspires me to go out and kind of not cancel, but kind of postpone and educate people. I've been trying to do that a lot more lately, and she touched my soul. I shed a few tears because sometimes the soul just needs a little water.
Fantastic. You can tell you love what you do.
I love it. Love this program.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Say your name and like your testimony. Like, oh, I liked it today. How it resonated with me. Yeah.
All right. Hi, my name is Mariana Vallejo, and I really enjoyed what today was about. Mind you, this program has been 3 years in the making, and when we thought about having a speaker, we really weren't sure exactly who or what we were looking for. But when we saw Rayna was a possibility, we just knew based on her energy and what we saw on her social media, that's the person we wanted to choose for this. It's a great experience. I'm happy that we were able to get it done. I think the message was shown and it was expressed the way it needed to be, and I cannot wait to keep in contact with her and continue working. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
You look so hot in this photo.
Okay.
Ready? Hi, my name is Brianne Fisher, and I just listened to Rayna Rose talk about breaking stereotypes, and it really inspired me to, you know, be educated more on these very important topics, and it was just super influential to hear everything she had to say, and, you know, it was relevant to my own life. I constantly get told I look too old for my age, I'm a catfish, I'm lazy, stuff like that, and I know everybody who is listening, you know, probably could relate to it one way or another, and she's just an amazing person and an amazing public speaker, and I love her.
Nailed it!